Hello everybody and welcome to this short session about prospect discovery. I'd like to talk about how we, when we call a prospect, especially for the SDR team, but it can also be used with salespeople, with partners, how we determine if the customer has a need that Cato can address. I mean, that's the fundamental thing, is to make sure that whoever we talk to at the end of the day is someone we can help. And if you think about the kind of challenges we solve for customers, I think ultimately it boils down to cost and performance, okay? What is the cost of the networking and security infrastructure, and if we can reduce it. And by reduce, I mean we either literally cut the spend or they can buy much more capabilities, value, capacity with the spend that they're currently using. And the second issue is performance. So there is something in their environment that impacts the user experience. We sometimes refer to it as latency, accessing resources across long distances, etc. So it's either a cost issue or a performance issue. So the first question we typically ask is how you connect and secure your locations, your business locations. Okay, that's the first question. We need to understand the network topology, right? And we typically get one of three answers. Either the customer is using MPLS as their WAN connectivity, or they're using the internet, which we sometimes refer to also as site-to-site VPN. Or they use a mix of both options, okay? Now, when you look at MPLS and internet, the main difference is that this option, the site-to-site VPN, is free. It's using the public internet, and it does not have a cost associated with it. And MPLS is a managed network, and it costs money, it's expensive, and this is a budget we can work with. A mixed situation typically arises where the customer has a geographical concentration, so they are in a specific location and a specific geographical area, and they have a lot of locations in that area, and they use an MPLS provider to connect their branches, and then they have additional locations outside that region, and the best way for them is just to connect them using the internet, and this is how you get into this blended MPLS and internet mix. So what it means to us is that if the customer uses MPLS or a mix of MPLS and internet, there is an opportunity for cost reduction with Cato. If they are using internet site-to-site VPN, there is less of a cost reduction opportunity, and generally speaking, we would view these customers as less compelling from a cost perspective. Now, what about performance? So performance usually happens when we have to connect locations across long distances. So it can be a branch in Asia with a data center in Europe. It can be another branch, let's say in Asia, that connects to a cloud data center outside the region, or an Office 365 instance out of the region. Or it could be an organization that is concentrated in a specific geography and you need to connect mobile users, let's say globally or out of region, to those resources. In all of these scenarios, there is a chance that someone is experiencing slow performance. So the second driver is latency, right? So we talked about a situation where we have a certain resource we want to access. Let's say it's a data center or it's a cloud data center. And then we have faraway branches or faraway users, okay? And what we have here is latency. And latency is something that customers spend money on solving, okay? Now, this particular problem can exist also for these internet site-to-site VPN customers, okay? So while that particular customer does not have a cost issue with their network, they may be having a latency problem with their users and branch locations. Okay? Maybe because they're using the public internet, which is an unpredictable transport, you may end up having to pay for that free connectivity with latency and performance issues. Okay? So we asked the customer how they are connected. We mapped out the use cases where that connectivity creates a potential cost issue. And then after we understood their network, we try to understand if they have a latency issue. For example, are they a global organization? Do they try to connect users and branches globally? And do they experience latency issues? Okay? So this is the fundamental kind of discovery that we're doing. We understand the network topology, and we understand how the users feel about the way they're accessing the different resources. Now, if we don't see a cost reduction opportunity or a performance issue, then the likelihood that we will get, a very strong and compelling use case or a prospect is lower. Okay, so let's now go into kind of the value, the second phase of the discovery. So let's assume that we have found out, or we mapped out, one of these challenges in the initial discovery. We now want to understand if there are additional value drivers that we can use here in order to make the case for Cato even stronger. Okay, so the next question we would ask is how you secure. What is the security architecture that the customer is using, right? And we know that there are basically two fundamental scenarios. One is that you have a firewall in every location. Okay? Or that you are backhauling traffic from multiple locations into a hub or a data center that has a firewall in it going to the internet. Okay? This scenario that has the firewalls in every location is typically associated with internet site-to-site. We already discussed the fact that internet site-to-site does not represent a cost reduction opportunity, but there could be some cost reduction related to firewall elimination, which is one of our use cases, and potentially the management and overhead associated with it. Typically, it's going to be very challenging for a customer to justify firewall elimination in that scenario unless we're talking about a very large number of sites. Okay, so if you encounter a small customer, say 4, 5, 6, 10 sites that connects using internet site to site and they have many firewalls, this is most likely it will either not go with Cato or will require a very large degree of discounting. Again, it's not a very lucrative target. If you look at this scenario, the other scenario where we are backhauling, so this is the backhaul scenario. Essentially, there is no firewall in every location, but everybody is talking to this central firewall. The truth is that this scenario will most likely happen with an MPLS-based network. So we already discussed the fact that MPLS represents a good target for us because there is a budget, there is a network, and as the customer kind of transforms their network from MPLS to Cato, then we are leveraging the MPLS budget to fund the project, and in the process we can go and eliminate firewalls, introduce additional security with direct internet access in every branch, etc. So this continues to be a relevant target. I think the bottom line of this conversation is that security is always an add-on to what we do. After we have discovered the basic network topology and determined that there is value in it for us from a cost or performance standpoint, then basically enabling the customers to eliminate existing firewalls or avoid the deployment of firewalls in the backhaul scenario, strengthen our position. If the customer has many firewalls, and many, we're talking dozens, then there is an opportunity for firewall elimination. If there's just a small number of sites with firewalls using site-to-site VPN, not a very compelling use case. The last two drivers is cloud connectivity and mobile access. So let's talk about that, right? So we have determined that the customer have one of the fundamental issues of MPLS, looking for MPLS elimination or augmentation or latency issues. Then we look at cloud, okay? So the fact that the customer has a cloud data center in their environment can be essentially can help us create a compelling case for Cato, because we enable customers to connect and secure the connectivity between their branches and their people and the data centers to the cloud. Sometimes the cloud instance itself is subject to latency. So basically accessing that cloud instance, this cloud application, is part of the performance problem that the customer is trying to solve. And therefore it kind of plays into the whole story. So the customer may experience latency between a mobile user and a data center, now a mobile user to the cloud. So we are basically aggregating multiple problems, solving them, and this is how the cloud plays. So if, for example, we talked about the customer network, we mapped out the challenges they have with their physical connectivity between the branches, the cloud can add another dimension, another value driver to the whole story. In the same way, a mobile user creates that dimension too. So if the customer came to us initially for MPLS cost reduction, but then we mapped out that they have a cloud, then may have mobile users that have cloud access challenges, data center access challenges. This is not something that the MPLS network is designed to address. So this is another value of Cato, right? As you go and transform your MPLS environment into Cato, you're not just addressing your physical locations, but you're also getting an optimized access to the cloud and optimized access for mobile users to all the resources they need. So this is a value add driver. And this is why when you look at the way we do discovery, we ask those exit questions that try to touch on mobile use cases and cloud use cases, not because they're essential for the business case of Cato, but because they overall strengthen our position. At the end of the day, the opportunities that we are the strongest in is those opportunities that have multiple value drivers, right? The more value drivers we have, MPLS cost reduction, global latency, cloud access, mobile access. When we have all of these things together, nobody can touch Cato, because nobody has the ability to solve all of these issues together. As we have less and less issues, it creates an opportunity for competitors to come in. So for example, if we talk about an MPLS network that is regional, there are no global issues, no latency issues, maybe there is no cloud, then other solutions can come into play, and our position is less strong. So we want to discover as many of these challenges as we can. That's it for today, and thanks for listening.